Okay, so I'm going to go down my opponent's case and I'm going to go back to become my own and date on it. Is it Judge ready?
Yeah.
Judge ready? Okay, so they start out by giving us this burden that we have to show without plea bargaining the system would be better off. They can't give us a burden. All we have to show you is that plea bargaining undermines the criminal justice system. That's all we have to do is the affirmative. They cannot make us prove anything that is not in the realms of the resolution. Now, moving on to their first convention, they talk about how plea bargaining is necessary. Now, it's approved, but it is more important to uphold the fundamental purpose of the criminal justice system. It doesn't matter how effective plea bargaining can be, it still undermines the purpose of the criminal justice system. Now, according to the Department of Justice, which is in control of the criminal justice system, the purposes are to enforce the law and defend the interests of the United States according to the law, to seek just punishment for those guilty of unlawful behavior, to ensure fair and impartial administration of justice for all Americans, and to provide federal leadership in preventing and controlling crime. So we show you that these people are not being held to the full extent of the law. They are having lesser crimes, and these people are being let go on lesser charges. So it is undermining some of the purposes of the criminal justice system. Now, moving on, they say the Supreme Court is condoning, but the Supreme Court said they condone it only if it's fair and there is no injustice that incurs. We show you that coercion is incurring. It is not a fair plea bargaining. So the Supreme Court quote doesn't apply. That may give you backlog, but the only reason plea bargaining helps with the backlog is because prosecutors knowingly use false testimony in 22% of cases, and defendants get convicted for things that they didn't do. So yet again, they're using coercion to fight the backlog. So to fight the backlog, they're undermining the criminal justice system. Now, moving on, they give you the example that they say without plea bargaining we would have no justice. This is just a hypothesis they have. They don't really have a warrant for this. And then they say El Paso banned it, but we show you that Oregon and Louisiana were able to function without plea bargaining, and according to the Time magazine, and they got rid of corruption. Their courts were not backlogged, and they got stiffer sentences for the criminals. Now, moving on, they talk about and furthermore, we give the real-world examples. They just give you some quotes from people who think what could happen. We're giving you examples. In their second contention, they say that society is good and so on and so forth, but the only reason that plea bargaining helps is because we have a bad economy. They cannot claim how effective plea bargaining is just because we don't have enough money to hire enough judges. Plea bargaining is only used because we don't have the money for it otherwise. That doesn't mean it still doesn't undermine the criminal justice system. In their subpoint B, they say defendants are protected, but I provide a study from Russell Covey, who says when you're presented with two options of risk, one of greater risk and one of little to no risk, such as a trial, you have a greater risk of having a harsher sentence, and in plea bargaining, you will get a lesser sentence. It is human nature to go for the greater risk and hopes to get acquitted or to even out. So it's human nature to go for the trial instead of plea bargaining. So since more people actually go for plea bargaining, it's reversed, and Covey hypothesized there are outside influences such as coercion. So he has a 32-page article talking about how coercion is used because it is against human nature to go for the plea bargain. Furthermore, prosecutors have admitted that they coerce and that they do everything they can to get a plea bargain. The Cato has reported that. Moving on to the third convention, they talk about plea bargaining will always happen, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't undermine the criminal justice system. So what if it still happens? It still undermines the criminal justice system. That is not a point for the name. It shows a flaw in the criminal justice system in whole, and it is not relevant in the round. Now, moving on to defend my own case, they attack our coercion by saying the judge oversees it and it makes it voluntary, but the judge always isn't there for the process of the plea bargain. They approve it. They aren't there when the defendant is getting coerced. So that attack doesn't stand, and they said the Supreme Court said that it's not coercive, but it's only if it's followed by the guidelines. And many times the coercion is not followed by the guidelines. They attacked our second contention by saying plea bargaining has 100% conviction, but that's not to the full extent of the law. We should hold people to what they're accountable and uphold the criminal justice system. And that's why I urge you to affirm. Thank you.